I'm April Van Buren. I'm a reporter and producer with Michigan Radio.
And I'm Michael Fay, and I'm an instructor at the School of Education at the University of Michigan.
I'm Mary Helen Baldwin, I'm Captain of Lincoln School District.
And go ahead and introduce yourselves and your teacher.
Thank you for allowing us to testify before you today. We're the Black River Women People Team from Holland, Michigan. My name is Joel Miller, and I'm a senior.
My name is Madeline Rule, and I'm a junior.
My name is Luke Ryder, and I'm also a senior. And this is our wonderful coach, Alex Constantine.
Hello.
Round of applause for your teacher. Okay, so today, should we start?
You want me? I think I did the last one. You take
Right,
the lead on this one.
Okay. So we're going to ask you question number 3 today, and I'll read it to you. According to the American Immigration Council, immigration to the United States is based upon the following principles: the reunification of families, admitting immigrants with skills that are valuable to the U.S. economy, protecting refugees, and promoting diversity. Does today's immigration policy reflect these principles? Why or why not? What are the major cultural and political issues regarding immigration that face America today? And what changes, if any, should be made to our current immigration policy?
On Saturday, December 22, the government was shut down for the third time in 2018. 420,000 federal employees are still working without pay due to the legislative stalemate over border wall funding. U.S. immigration policy is awash in politicization. A balanced critique would compare reality to the American Immigration Council's principles.
First, the reunification of families. Currently, naturalized citizens can sponsor up to 20 relatives, granting them preferential treatment in the immigration system. We believe this policy takes up too great a share of legal immigration today, over 20% of green cards. The goal of our policy should be to help the disadvantaged, not just those who already have familial resources for success. Extended family green cards should be curbed while allowing immediate family members to stay together.
Speaking of which, over 14,000 immigrant children still remain in federal custody from President Trump's short-lived family separation policy at our southern border. In response, the ACLU sued, and a U.S. district judge ordered their reunification. They must be reunited with their parents in order for us to live up to this ideal.
Second, admitting immigrants with skills that are valuable to the U.S. economy. According to Forbes, 40% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants. U.S. tech companies rely on H-1B visas for high-skilled migrant workers that are vital to our fast-paced economy. This realm of our policy is in keeping with our core principles and must be maintained.
Third, protecting refugees. Last year, the Central American migrant caravan consisted of 7,000 people seeking asylum in the United States. The U.S. refugee policy, however, only allocated for 3,000 Central Americans to be admitted. This arbitrary cap on refugees turns a blind eye to the ever-changing international landscape. Rigid caps must be removed in favor of flexible policy.
Fourth, promoting diversity. The Diversity Lottery Program accounts for only 5% of immigration and is often the only manner for individuals from developing countries to attain the American dream. This program should be enlarged in order to provide more opportunity for disadvantaged persons.
Beyond the Immigration Council's principles, cultural and political debates around immigration tug at the fabric of our nation. Robert Putnam observes that people living in more diverse communities withdraw like turtles from civic life and are less likely to be politically involved. Yet clearly, tolerance can be built through exposure, as public opinion polling shows that those areas with the strongest nativist attitudes are also those with the smallest population of immigrants.
Politically, sanctuary cities drive a wedge between local and federal governments. While we applaud the intent of cities such as Chicago and San Francisco, the 2012 case Arizona v. U.S. clearly reinforces Congress's plenary powers over immigration, making sanctuary cities constitutionally dubious.
In addition, despite the 14th Amendment declaring due process under the law for all, most individuals facing deportation are not provided legal counsel. When New York City began providing legal representation for these individuals, the number of migrants found eligible for relief increased by a factor of 12. More cities should adopt this policy.
Lastly, we must address the wall. It would cost $21.6 billion according to the DHS, and frankly, would be ineffective. The majority of illegal immigration currently comes from overstayed visas, not people crossing the border.
President Obama said it best. Ultimately, this is about basic decency. This is about whether we are people who kick hopeful strivers out of America, or whether we treat them the way we want our kids to be treated. We should look past the wall to policies aligned with the Immigration Council's principles and get the 420,000 federal employees back on payroll. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Thank you.
So as a first follow-up question, should resident aliens have the same rights as citizens? Why or why not?
Under the 14th Amendment, all individuals subject to the jurisdiction of the United States do have the same protections and rights of due process. So we believe that all individuals subject to the United States, regardless of their immigration status, should be still subject to the same rights and privileges that all citizens also receive.
What about voting?
Voting, I think it's also, if they are legal permanent residents, I think that they should be able to vote in at least local elections.
You talked about this. Could you clarify a little bit the distinction between the extent to which states should set immigration policy, for example, border states, and to the extent to which you see this as being federal policy?
Numerous Supreme Court cases, such as Arizona v. U.S. and Chirac v. Lessee of Chirac, have outlined that the federal government has sole plenary power over all immigration principles. In Article 1, Section 8, Congress's delegated power over all rules and regulations regarding naturalization. And so we believe that states and localities should need to defer to the federal Congress about their rules and regulations, rather than creating a disjointed and ununified stance towards foreign policy.
However, as we say in our response, some localities such as Chicago and San Francisco have disregarded the power of the federal government by instituting sanctuary cities, which allow for undocumented persons to be in these areas without being subject to deportation.
But in Article 1, Section 9, it states that states cannot make treaties with other foreign nations. So by that reasoning, they should not be able to have their own immigration policy with other nations.
I'm wondering, do you think that there should be a distinction? When DACA came up, there was also the program DAPA that got struck down. For parents who are older who came into this country illegally and have U.S. children or have children who are going through DACA, should they get a priority to stay in the country?
We would suggest a codification of the DREAM program as well as DACA and DAPA into our congressional law in order to solidify these programs in our immigration policy and to provide a sense of unity rather than them being presidential executive orders. And we believe that these principles of leniency and prosecutorial discretion are essential to just policy.
The Reagan administration actually tackled this issue when they granted an amnesty to all of the undocumented immigrants within America. So this really helped be able to make a pathway for those undocumented persons in that way.
Is that a policy that you think would make sense today?
I do not believe that amnesty would be a great policy. We see that that under the Reagan administration in 1986, this policy actually backfired, and the undocumented population rose from around 5 million to over 11 million individuals. Some believe that today the best policy going forward for our immigration is strict uniform enforcement of current congressional law. However, we still believe that leniency and prosecutorial discretion are necessary, as with DACA, DAPA, and the DREAM program.
I think our best option would be able to grant more of a pathway of citizenship for those who are the parents of undocumented people, and to be able to favor them in that way.
Do you have a...
No.
All right. I have another one. I don't know how much time we have left, but the world currently is in the midst of one of the biggest refugee crises of world history. Do you think that the American government has a responsibility to take in more refugees than it has in the past, given the world?
I absolutely agree with that. As seen in the migrant caravan from Central America, 7,000 immigrants were in that, whereas our policy only allocated for 3,000, as we say in the response. And we believe that an increase in this number and an increase in, not only an increase in the number, but just flexibility in the policy could allow for refugees to come in under special circumstances, because things such as wars in other nations will influence the number of the refugees seeking to come to the United States.
Should there be distinctions made among countries that those immigrants are coming from? You have the ban on certain countries, people immigrating from certain countries that the Trump administration put out. Should we have different standards for different countries based on our relationships with them or other factors?
I believe it is reasonable to have different rules and regulations for different countries regarding immigration. It is important that the United States has a strong relationship with a country in order to ensure that security information is being shared between the two countries and whether or not the country is in a recognizable, peaceful state in order to ensure that individuals who may be dangerous to the United States are not able to come to the United States without proper vetting and security concerns.
The United States already does have regulations on what is considered a refugee when coming into the country. So in that sense, if they meet those standards, they can already come into the country. And on the basis of certain countries, us allowing refugees to enter our borders, I think some regulations should still be applied.
You have 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Anything else you guys would like to add on?
However, on the other hand, some individuals could argue that our immigration policy should serve all individuals regardless of their national origin and should help all disadvantaged peoples come to America and make their life better regardless of whether from Egypt or from Mexico.
Well, thank you guys so much.
So I have to say that you guys have shown yourselves to be singularly well prepared for this, both in terms of historical precedent, but also to a very impressive extent in terms of the law. You've done a really good job of doing that. The level of parsing out the participation is a bit like watching an exquisite dance. Very, very nice. And I think on the whole, the reasoning you've applied to this, to the questions that we posed to you, is quite solid. So I'll be good.
And agree with Michael. You guys did a great job of sharing the load. I really appreciated that your historical and constitutional examples really related to the questions we were asking. They didn't feel like factoids kind of dropped in. Your reasoning was very clear. It was very organized.